Heyo, how you doing? Before we get into the video, I just want to quickly announce that I have a new channel. Yup, that's right, Scarab Live, link in the description, is where I'm going to be posting all the highlights, the clips, and the VODs from my various streams over on twitch.tv/fscarablive. I'm still mad that I didn't get the Twitch name, but I did get the YouTube name, so make sure to head over there. That is Scarab Live on YouTube. Hit subscribe, turn post notifications on, you know what to do. With that announcement out the way, let's get straight into the video. Red Dead Redemption 2, as you probably all know by now, is my favourite game of all time, and that's for a lot of reasons. Its immersive gameplay and its gorgeous, sprawling world both stand out as some. But most importantly, it's Red Dead 2's incredible narrative that pushes it into the upper echelon of the gaming industry, telling the perfect prequel story to the original 2010 game. And that begins with an opening chapter that, despite being the shortest in the game, also includes some of the best writing work that Rockstar have ever done. Because despite it being tiny in comparison to the rest of the game, Red Dead 2's opening is in every way flawless. By 1899, the age of outlaws and gunslingers was at an end. That's the first thing we see when we open Red Dead Redemption 2, that's the first piece of information we're given. And this line immediately sets the game's tone. This isn't going to be some over-the-top tale of the gang John Marston used to run with. No, this is going to be the story of an entire era, a whole generation of people being wiped off the map. Because despite being a prequel in a literal sense, Red Dead Redemption 2 is still very much the final chapter of these people's lives, or at least the lives that they know. And that end starts with a mountaintop blizzard, not exactly the most likely of settings for a Wild West game. Being thrown straight into this disastrous situation with gang members on the brink of death and others ready to freeze, with the storm on their tails and nowhere to go, was the perfect way to have this game separate itself from the original, with its slow-paced, incredibly cinematic prologue. And speaking of separating itself from the original game, Rockstar had a tough task to live up to that original masterpiece that was beloved by so many, and more specifically, create a character that could live up to John Marston. It would have been easy to have John appear immediately to cash in on some nostalgia points, but instead, to ensure he didn't steal the show, Rockstar slowly drip-fed us the characters we'd already come to know and love. And of course, the first man we see is Dutch, who you could argue has a story that's just as important as the story of our protagonist, Arthur Morgan, who appears as the one sign of light in the darkness of this wild storm. Reaching a small mining village, the gang takes shelter before we get one of Dutch's ever so memorable speeches, reminding us exactly why people so easily turn to him as a leader in times of crisis.
But we lost some folks. Now, if I could throw myself in the ground in their stead, I'd do it. Gladly. Selves warm. Stay strong. Stay with me. We ain't done yet.
In between the speeches and the character introductions, we also get hints of what's led up to this point, a Blackwater boat robbery gone terribly wrong. But before Arthur can get all the info, he's sent on a hunt for help. Dutch and Arthur make their way through the blizzard, and Arthur asks his leader if he thinks that the gang was set up, and just as he does, who else but Micah Bell appears out of the darkness, a beautifully subtle bit of foreshadowing to Micah's true character. It's clear from the start that there's no love lost between Arthur and Micah, but they're both willing to put their clear differences aside out of their loyalty to Dutch, immediately establishing Arthur as truly loyal. After a quick ride, the trio finds a small cabin filled with light and warmth, however not as welcoming as it may appear, because this wooden sanctuary is filled with O'Driscolls who've taken this house from a married couple, and a quick search reveals one half of this couple, Sadie Adler, to still be alive and kicking. Maybe kicking a bit too much for Micah's liking.
Oh, you fool! Micah!
Dutch's genuine compassion, the thing that makes him supposedly stand apart from his arch-nemesis Como Driscoll, is present here, and whilst Arthur shares his kindness towards the widow, Micah immediately leaps to aggression, and it's made even more clear that Micah stands in complete contrast with Dutch and Arthur. But of course, he's indispensably loyal, and for that, Dutch is willing to keep him around. Because Dutch Vanderland, in spite of his compassion, values loyalty over everything else. He wants those he leads to be entirely subservient to him, never questioning his lead. The trio head back to the gang, bringing Sadie with them, and when they do, they're finally given some solace from the brutal mountain winds. And with that, Red Dead Redemption 2 begins. But the opening doesn't quite end there. No, chapter 1 goes a little longer, as before the gang can go anywhere, they need to find their missing cowboy. John Marston, who to this point has been absent in order to focus on the other characters, has been missing for days, and Abigail begs Arthur to find him. However, Arthur isn't all the way on board. Surprisingly, he's not the biggest fan of John, especially after he abandoned the gang for a year. Despite this distaste though, Arthur agrees that John would do the same for him, and so he and Javier head up the mountains once again, creating a perfect parallel not only to the ending of Red Dead 1, but also to the grand finale of this game.
You ain't gonna die. Not yet.
Finding John bloodied and trapped atop the mountain, we're finally given the explanation for John's iconic facial scars, and get a brilliant line of meta writing that really showed Rockstar understood how hard it was to write satisfying revelations to things so iconic.
You know, we're gonna need to come up with a better story for that scar. So, freezing, bleeding, starving, damn near getting eaten to death ain't good enough for you.
If only they'd known that the crazy part of the fanbase cared way more about the hair than they did about the scar, for some fucking reason. Following this mellow reintroduction of the tragic hero we know and love, we're sent on a quick gunfight with the O'Driscolls, setting up Combe as an early antagonist. We go out hunting with Charles and get a chance to explore the wildlife of this incredible world, as well as come to understand the importance of helping the gang, bringing food and supplies to support this family that we come to love in Chapter 2. And finally, much quicker than we expect, we reach the end of this perfect beginning, with this short but distinct chapter climaxing in the way most people probably expected Red Dead 2 to go, with a train robbery and a massive shootout that acts as the spark for Dutch's grand plan to make a lot of money, I guess.
We just need money.
And so we reach the end of Chapter 1, with the gang heading down to greener pastures and the world finally opening up for us to explore. In just 5 short missions, the gang's introduced, nearly every gameplay system is explained, and every main character is given time to showcase their motivations, their traits, and the beginning of their character arcs. On top of all that, the ultra immersive style of the world is expertly displayed, with this enclosed mountainous area giving the player just a tiny taste of what the world holds, leaving them ready to explore every single inch of it. Although you could argue that Chapter 1 is the worst part of Red Dead 2 in a vacuum, it serves its purpose to the overarching game perfectly, and it does everything it needs to do in as little time as possible to hook the player in for the experience of a lifetime. So that is the video, and I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit like, and if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and turn post notifications on. Also, if you want to see my clips, my highlights, my VODs, like I said, head over to Scarab Live and hit subscribe there as well. If you want to support the channel, you can go over to patreon.com/foundinScarab and pledge just $1 a month for early access to videos and plenty more. Twitch link, Twitter link, Instagram link in the description below. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka FoundinScarab, and I will see you in the next one.